Kamsi no Kiri stood beneath a riot of colors arcing across the Lagos sky, a brilliant rainbow that seemed heaven-sent on her wedding morning. Her white lace gown hugged her silhouette, and her heart swelled as she glanced at Chijioke, his eyes shining with love. Guests murmured admiration as petals drifted in the warm breeze. Yet out of the corner of her eye, Kamsi saw Adaora, her future sister-in-law, leaning against a stucco column, arms folded, her dark eyes cool and unreadable. A tremor ran through Kamsi's spine. Adaora's presence felt less like family and more like a gathering storm. The officiant, a kindly imam who had guided the couple through premarital counseling, lifted his hands in blessing. By the mercy of Allah, we unite these two hearts in matrimony. Kamsi's pulse thudded like a drum as Chijioke repeated his vows, voice steady. When it was her turn, her words wavered only for a moment before she found her strength. I promise to honor you, to stand beside you, through every sunrise and storm. As they exchanged rings, Adaora drifted forward, slipping a small white envelope into Chijioke's pocket. He glanced down in confusion, then back to Kamsi. The rainbow flickered, as if warning of what lay ahead. At the reception, laughter filled the air. Kamsi's childhood friend, Ifeoma, pressed a slice of cake into her hand. You look radiant, she whispered. Kamsi smiled, but the bite of sweetness was tinged with unease. Across the courtyard, Adaora drifted through clusters of relatives, her smile just pale enough to chill. Later, under lanterns strung like fireflies, Adaora approached Chijioke as he refilled his glass. Her voice was low, almost conspiratorial. You know, Kamsi's family had a scandal 10 years ago. I heard. Chijioke frowned, brows knitting. What scandal? Adaora's lips curved in a smug half-smile. Oh, just something you might want to know before the honeymoon. Kamsi watched, frozen. A bead of sweat trickled down Chijioke's temple even as he raised his glass to her. In that moment, Kamsi realized that the most beautiful day of her life had been pierced by a hidden thorn. And as the first chord of the wedding band's final song drifted through the night, she whispered to herself, I have to find out what Adaora is up to before it's too late. 2 days later, Kamsi unlocked the door to her own home, now shared with Adaora, who had proposed to move in for a few weeks of sisterly bonding. Chijioke, ever dutiful, had agreed without a second thought. But when Adaora swept inside, claiming the master bedroom for herself, Kamsi's chest tightened. The walls felt smaller, the air colder. Kamsi cleared her throat. I thought we discussed. I'll have the master suite. Adaora smirked, tugging down a sheer curtain. Oh, darling Kamsi, the guest bedroom is fine for friends, but a wife should sleep beside her husband, don't you think? The implication hummed between them. Chijioke appeared in the hallway, brow furrowed. Adaora just wants to rest. We'll switch next week. He smiled at Kamsi, oblivious. Kamsi forced a nod. Later, as she arranged her toothbrush and family photos in the cramped guest bath, she realized Adaora's invasion was no convenience. It was a takeover. At dinner, Adaora's presence pressed in. She quizzed Kamsi about every detail of her past, childhood friends, schools, embarrassments. Chijioke laughed and answered her questions, but Kamsi sensed each inquiry was a probe, seeking ammunition. Adaora's laughter at a childhood mishap didn't feel friendly. It felt predatory. Afterward, Kamsi retreated to her bedroom and dialed Ifeoma. Something's wrong, she whispered. Adaora isn't what she seems. Ifeoma's pause was long enough to scare her. Just be careful, Kamsi. I'll look into her family. Closing her eyes, Kamsi listened to the muffled sounds of Adaora's laughter drifting through the thin walls. With a sinking heart, she understood. Adaora's shadow would swallow every corner of her life unless she found a way to push back. 2 weeks in, the cracks began to show. Kamsi returned home one afternoon to find Adaora hosting a gathering of Chijioke's co-workers in the living room. Glasses clinked, banter bounced off the walls. Kamsi cleared her throat. We had plans for dinner tonight. Adaora glanced at the clock, 6:15 p.m., dinner time indeed. She shrugged, voice syrupy. Sorry, dear, these are old friends from university. I couldn't disappoint them. That night, Chijioke whispered as they lay side by side in the master bed. Adaora's just making friends. You worry too much. Kamsi forced a smile. I know. But her stomach churned. Adaora's domain had expanded, and Chijioke seemed blind. The next morning, Kamsi discovered an anonymous note slipped under her door. They say your family lost everything in '09. Is that true? Unnerved, Kamsi confronted Adaora in the kitchen. Did you put this here? Adaora's expression was feigned shock. I would never. Oh, dear, do you think someone from my network did it? I'll find out. But her eyes danced with mischief. Over the following days, rumors swirled. Chijioke's colleagues glanced at Kamsi with hesitation. At the market, vendors whispered as she passed. Kamsi's confidence, built over years of hard work, crumbled under the weight of whispered lies. She turned to her mother, Mama Oju, on the phone. I don't know what to do. Her mother's voice was gentle but firm. Gather proof of these rumors, my child. This storm can't break you if you stand strong. One evening, Kamsi spotted Adaora sneaking into Chijioke's study, phone in hand. The door clicked shut just before Kamsi reached it. A sense of dread pooled in her gut. Adaora was planting seeds of doubt, and soon, the entire foundation of her marriage might collapse. It was Mama Oju's birthday, and Kamsi persuaded Chijioke to host a family dinner in her honor. The dining room glittered with candles and fresh orchids. As Kamsi poured juice, she glanced at Adaora, settled comfortably between Chijioke and his cousin, smiling too broadly. Midway through the meal, Adaora slammed her napkin onto the table. I can't stay silent any longer, she declared, voice cold. Kamsi has been hiding her true nature. My sources in the office tell me she's been embezzling company funds. Gasps erupted. Kamsi's heart pounded so loud, she swore she could hear it. What? She stammered. Chijioke rose, face pale. Is that true? Adaora shrugged theatrically. I didn't want to believe it, but it's everywhere. Kamsi's voice cracked. Adaora, you're lying. But her protest sounded hollow against the chorus of judgment. Aunt Ifeoma leaned forward. Kamsi, are you telling us Adaora is making this up? Kamsi swallowed. I've never stolen anything in my life. Across the table, Chijioke's jaw clenched. Prove it. He reached for his phone and scrolled. Show me the evidence. Kamsi closed her eyes, fingertips trembling. Later, battered by shock and tears, Kamsi retreated to her room. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Check your emails. She opened her inbox to find doctored bank statements and photos of her signing checks for household bills, twisted to look like corporate transactions. As thunder rumbled outside, Kamsi realized how thoroughly Adaora had poisoned the well of trust. Her own home felt like a courtroom set against her. And somewhere in the darkness, Adaora's triumphal laughter echoed. Kamsi awoke on her birthday to an eerie silence. No balloons, no laughter. Only the dull hum of the refrigerator. She stepped into the living room, empty. The roses she'd ordered for herself lay wilted on the coffee table, petals scattered. Tears welled in her eyes as the weight of betrayal pressed down. She sank onto the sofa, phone in hand, and dialed her mother. Mama Oju's soft voice came through. Happy birthday, my brave girl. Kamsi managed a shaky laugh. It doesn't feel like it. She recounted the dinner, the lies, the fake evidence. Her mother's sigh was heavy. You must reclaim your story, Kamsi. Prove your innocence, clear your name. Don't let them steal your joy. Summoning courage, Kamsi logged into her bank account and printed real statements. She drafted a clear email to Chijioke, laying out every transaction and attaching authentic proofs. Before hitting send, she paused. Memories flooded back. The day Chijioke carried her over the threshold, her mother's blessing, Adaora's first unsettling smile. A knock at the door startled her. It was Ifeoma, clutching folders. I got everything I could find on Adaora, her record of slander lawsuits, her pattern of attacks. She handed Kamsi a thick stack of documents. "You won't believe how many women she's done this to." Kamsi let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. The dawn's first light touched her face. In that fragile brightness, she saw a path forward. Gather evidence, confront the lies, and fight for her dignity. She turned to Ifeoma. "It's time." As they prepared to storm Chijioke's office with irrefutable proof, Kamsi's heart pounded not with fear, but with resolve. "I will not be a victim," she vowed. And though the journey ahead was uncertain, in that moment she reclaimed her power, ready to face Adaora's poison with the truth. Rain pelted the hospital window in a steady drumbeat as Kamsi Nwokedi sat beside her mother's bed, clutching Mama Oju's frail hand. Tubes and monitors hissed softly. Though weakened by illness, Mama Oju's dark eyes blazed with urgency. "I fear for you, my daughter," she whispered, voice raspy. "Adaora's poison grows deeper. You must not suffer in silence." Kamsi swallowed, throat tight. "I promised myself I would be strong, Mama. But every day, I feel weaker." Mama Oju shifted, her gaze drifting to the door where a nurse hovered. Kamsi gently squeezed her hand. "Listen to me. When hurt comes, you fight back, not out of vengeance, but to protect your soul." Outside, the corridor lights flickered. Kamsi glanced at the clock. 8:15 p.m. Her phone buzzed. Another anonymous tip, another cruel rumor. She stole a glance at her mother's gaunt face. "What if I lose him, Mama? What if Chijioke never believes me?" Oju's lips curved in a tired smile. "Then you will have your dignity. A man who loves you will fight with you. A man who doubts you, he is not yours to keep." A flicker of pain crossed Kamsi's heart, yet beneath it lay resolve. "I will gather proof," she vowed. "I will show Chijioke the truth." Mama Oju nodded, then closed her eyes as if gathering strength. Kamsi stayed by her side until the nurse gently ushered her out. In the elevator, droplets of rain clung to her lashes. The world felt gray. Her marriage teetered on the brink. That night, back at the house, Kamsi rifled through files, bank statements, emails, CCTV snippets, anything that could clear her name. As she worked, her phone lit up with a message from Ifeoma. "I found something on Adaora. Meet me at the cafe on Ikoyi Road at dawn." Kamsi's heart thundered. Dawn meant only hours away. She fell into bed in the dark guest room, mind racing. In sleep, she dreamed of rain-washed streets and her mother's trembling plea, "Fight for your soul." When morning finally arrived, Kamsi steeled herself. Today, she would begin to turn the tide. The next morning, Kamsi tiptoed into the master bedroom, only to find Chijioke's side of the dresser drawers ajar. Her breath caught. The velvet box that held her golden diamond wedding band lay empty on the floor. "Adaora!" Kamsi's voice was a hiss as she stormed down the corridor. In the guest bath, she confronted her sister-in-law. "Adaora," arms folded, feigned innocence. "Why would I take your ring? I didn't even know where you kept it." Kamsi's eyes burned. "Then answer this. Why did I wake up to find my most precious symbol gone?" Adaora tilted her head. "Maybe you misplaced it. People forget things when they're under stress." Kamsi's pulse pounded. She remembered the anonymous note, the fake bank files, the vicious rumors. This was the final humiliation, to steal the symbol of her commitment. She returned to the living room to find Chijioke already waiting, tension etched on his face. "Where's your ring?" he demanded, voice tight. Kamsi swallowed. "I don't know." Frustration overwhelmed him. He grabbed her by the shoulders. "Have you thought that you might have lost it? It's just like you to be careless." Kamsi recoiled, tears flooding her eyes. "Don't blame me," she cried. He turned away, jaw clenched, and strode to the front door. Adaora followed him out, voice low and soothing. Left alone, Kamsi sank to the floor, hands clasped around her legs. The ring had been more than jewelry. It was proof of love. Now she felt naked, vulnerable. Later, as dusk settled, Kamsi crept to Adaora's study, where she'd seen her sister-in-law sneaking phone calls. The door was locked. A soft click, a text flashed on Kamsi's phone. Check under the sofa cushion in the drawing room. With trembling fingers, she lifted the cushion. There lay the ring, glittering in the lamplight, and beside it, a scrap of paper. You're on thin ice. Stay quiet, or I'll destroy you. Poisoned fear twisted in her gut. Adaora had staged the theft, and still controlled every card. Yet now Kamsi had proof that someone had deliberately taken and returned her ring. Proof she could show Chijioke. That night, she took a deep breath and drafted a full account of the theft, complete with the threat note, and emailed it to Chijioke, with read receipt requested. Tomorrow, she would force him to see the truth. Desperate for guidance, Kamsi replayed a chance encounter from weeks earlier. At the market, she'd overheard a fierce-voiced woman defending an abuse victim. Now her mind raced back. The woman had handed the victim her business card, Barrister Muna. At dawn, armed with that memory, Kamsi ventured to Victoria Island. The streets were already humming with traffic. She weaved between okadas until she reached a sleek glass office tower. Inside, the receptionist guided her to Barrister Muna's chambers. A tall, imposing woman in a crisp white blouse looked up from a stack of files. Her dark eyes were sharp yet curious. How can I help you? Kamsi swallowed. I need legal advice. I'm being slandered, threatened, even robbed of my own property, all by my sister-in-law. She laid out the ring incident, the fake bank statements, the rumors. Barrister Muna listened, expression unreadable. When Kamsi finished, tears in her eyes, the lawyer leaned forward. You have evidence? Kamsi nodded and handed over printouts. Muna flicked through them. This is serious defamation. If we move quickly, I can file for an injunction against Adaora, stop her from contacting your husband or spreading rumors. And we can seek a restraining order for the theft. A spark of hope lit Kamsi's chest. Thank you, she whispered. Muna stood and crossed to a credenza, retrieving a sleek card. Meet my assistant tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Bring your originals. She slid the card across. We'll fight to restore your reputation. Outside the building, gray clouds drifted in. For the first time in weeks, Kamsi felt strength behind her, an ally with the authority to challenge Adaora's schemes. That afternoon, back home, she found Chijioke's read receipt glowing on her email. Read. Her heart raced. Would he understand? He appeared in the doorway, arms folded. I got your email about the ring. Why didn't you mention all this earlier? His tone was cautious. I needed proof, Kamsi said. I've been to a lawyer. We can file restraining orders. Chijioke's face hardened. A lawyer? Against my sister? Against anyone who spreads lies, steals from me, and tries to ruin my life. Kamsi's voice cracked, but beneath it lay steel. He sighed, rubbing his temples. This is why I love you, but you intimidate me sometimes. Tears blurred Kamsi's vision. I just want you to believe me. He stepped forward and took her hands. I'm trying. But you have to show me you won't burn our family down. Kamsi closed her eyes. Tomorrow, at Barrister Muna's office, she would show him exactly why this fight mattered, and why her dignity was worth defending. A month after the wedding, Kamsi discovered she was pregnant. The news should have brought joy, yet instead, it filled her with dread. What if Adaora targeted her at her most vulnerable? One morning, nausea tugging, Kamsi reached for her wedding journal only to find it open on a blank page and smeared with red. Panic flared. It looked like bloodstains. Hands shaking, she rifled through the pages, but each entry was stained. She raced to the bathroom and caught a glimpse of herself in the mirror, ashy, exhausted. A fresh pang hit her gut. Had her miscarriage already begun? Husband? Baby? Marriage? Everything felt perilously fragile. She staggered to the hospital, clutching the journal as if it were evidence. The doctor's office smelled of antiseptic. Dr. Ikechukwu glanced at her chart, then at her face. What's wrong? Kamsi's voice trembled. My journal, it's stained. My blood. I think. Dr. Ikechukwu's brow knitted. Let's run an ultrasound. Minutes later, against the humming backdrop of machines, Kamsi watched the screen. Empty, silent. No fluttering heartbeat. Tears welled. "Is the baby gone?" she whispered. "I'm so sorry," the doctor said gently. "It appears your pregnancy has ended." A hollow ache swallowed her. She sank to the edge of the table, hands covering her face. Dr. Ikechukwu stayed by her, offering tissues. Later, walking home in a daze, Kamsi passed a children's playground, its bright swings taunting her emptiness. A mother pushed her toddler on a slide. Their laughter seared her chest. Inside, Adaora lounged on the sofa, phone pressed to her ear, lips curling around cruel words. Kamsi paused by the doorway, trembling. The sight of Adaora so casually comfortable and knowing stoked rage and sorrow. That night, Kamsi lay beside Chijioke, tears staining her pillow. He stirred. "You were at the hospital? How did you?" He sat up, guilt flashing in his eyes. "Your email said, medical emergency." Kamsi shook her head. "It's gone." Chijioke reached for her. "Oh, Kamsi, I'm sorry, but it wasn't your fault." She willed her voice to be steady. "I need you now more than ever." He held her tight, but in the shadows Kamsi sensed the widening gulf, their hopes for a family shattered by deceit. Still, beneath heartbreak burned a promise. She would rebuild, no matter what. Late one evening, Kamsi's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Check the folder labeled Family on your Dropbox." Her pulse raced. She tapped the link. A video file appeared. Adaora_confession, MP4. Hands shaking, she pressed play. The footage showed Adaora, phone in hand, smirk bright, speaking into the camera. "Tonight, I plant the bank docs in her drawer. He'll have no choice but to doubt her." Then, watching her crumble, priceless. Adaora laughed, tossing papers onto a cluttered desk. The camera panned to Chijioke's laptop, showing Kamsi's email to Barrister Muna. Adaora clicked through the restraining order paperwork with a satisfied grin. Kamsi's heart thundered. Here was the smoking gun. Adaora admitting every crime. Tears blurred her vision. She knew she had to show Chijioke immediately. She grabbed her car keys and sped through the darkened streets to his law firm's high-rise office. In the lobby, she sprinted past the receptionist and took the elevator to the 14th floor. Chijioke's door stood ajar. His chair was empty. A muffled voice drifted down the hallway. Kamsi crept toward chamber 14B. Inside, she glimpsed Chijioke pacing, on the phone, tense. She flung open the door. "Chijioke, you have to see this." He hung up. "Kamsi? What?" She held out her phone. "Watch." With a tremor in his hand, he tapped play. Adaora's confession echoed through the room. Chijioke's face paled, jaw slack. When the video ended, he stared at Kamsi, voice small. She did all this?" Kamsi nodded, tears in her eyes. "Every lie, every rumor. She planned to ruin me." Chijioke sank into his chair, burying his face in his hands. Minutes passed like hours. Finally, he looked up, eyes raw. "I'm so sorry. I was a fool." Kamsi stepped forward, hand on his shoulder. "You can't undo what's happened, but you can stand with me now." He stood, pulling her close. "I will. I promise." As they embraced, the city lights of Lagos glimmered through the glass, hope glinting amid the pain. They would need every ounce of courage for the battles ahead. Legal showdown, public scandal, family reckoning. But in that moment, united by truth, they found a fragile peace and the first spark of Kamsi's path to redemption. Kamsi stood in the rain-slicked driveway of Chijioke's family home, the hem of her dress clinging to her calves. In her hand, she clutched her phone, screen glowing with Adaora's confession. She heard the front door creak and turned to see Chijioke stepping onto the porch, umbrella abandoned at his side. His face was drawn, eyes red from sleepless nights. "You said you had proof," he whispered, voice thick with pain. Thunder rumbled overhead as Kamsi raised her phone. "I do. Watch this." Chijioke's jaw tightened. "Not tonight." He started to close the door. Chijioke, please, Kamsi implored, voice trembling. You have to believe me. Before she could finish, he stepped forward, once, sharply, and his open palms smacked across Kamsi's cheek. The sound cracked through the damp night. Kamsi staggered back, hand to her stinging face. Shock numbed her limbs. Don't you dare, he shouted, eyes wide. I can't hear this right now. Rain splashed around them as he turned away, closing the door with a definitive click. Kamsi pressed her back against the cold brick wall, tears mingling with raindrops. Lightning forked overhead, illuminating the betrayal on her face. Her mother's words echoed in her mind. Fight for your soul. But by the time she found her voice, the car behind her had disappeared into the night. Inside, Chijioke leaned against the hallway wall, shoulders shaking with silent sobs. His mother's voice drifted from the living room. Chijioke? Who's out there? He wiped his cheeks and forced a steady breath before stepping back into the house. In her small apartment, Kamsi peeled off her wet clothes and wrapped herself in a towel. Every breath burned. She pressed the phone to her ear. Barrister Muna? She whispered. I need you. Moments later, her lawyer's calm voice soothed her. Stay where you are. I'm sending an assistant with a protective order. Relief crept in, but underneath it lay a hollow ache. The wound of rejection was raw. That night, Kamsi sat shivering under a blanket on the sofa, staring at Adaora's video paused on her phone. The image of Adaora's triumphant smile seemed to mock her. She closed her eyes, gathering the shards of her dignity. Tomorrow, she would file the order and face whatever came next. But right now, the world felt empty without Chijioke's belief, and the storm outside was nothing compared to the one raging within her heart. Dawn broke on a brittle world. The rain had stopped, but the air remained electric. Kamsi packed a single suitcase, clothes, her wedding journal, the protective order. Each item felt weighted with memory and purpose. She paused before a framed wedding photo, her and Chijioke beneath that brilliant rainbow. Her fingers traced the glass. I'm sorry, she whispered to the reflection. Then she slipped the photo into a garment bag and zipped it closed. Outside, the sky was pale gray. Adaora's Mercedes gleamed in the driveway. Kamsi crossed the lawn and set her bag in the trunk. As she closed it, Adaora appeared at the front door, perfectly coiffed, lips pursed. Well, darling, Adaora said, voice syrupy. I see you're leaving. Kamsi met her gaze, without flinching. This isn't healthy for me. Adaora tilted her head. But it's your home. She stepped forward, placing a manicured finger on Kamsi's arm. One day you'll thank me for pushing you away. Kamsi pulled back. Trust me, I never will. With that, she climbed into her own old sedan parked down the street. As the engine turned over, she caught a glimpse of Chijioke in the front window, pale, conflicted, eyes glistening. He opened the door, started forward, then shut it again. His hesitation was a final wound. She drove away under a sky still bruised with clouds. At every red light, she eyed her side view mirror, half expecting him to appear, and each time, she saw only empty pavement. Heart pounding, she navigated past familiar streets, the market where she and Chijioke had once laughed over plantain fritters, the church where they'd wed. Everything held echoes of what had been and what could have been. By mid-morning, she reached her mother's house on the outskirts of the city. Mama Oju sat on a plastic chair by the open door, knitting needles clicking. She looked up without surprise. You're home, she murmured. Kamsi collapsed into her mother's arms. As tears soaked Mama Oju's shoulder, she felt a measure of safety, like a battered ship finally reaching harbor. Outside, the wind rustled mango leaves, and for the first time since the wedding, Kamsi believed she might survive this storm. Back at his family home, Chijioke stared at the empty driveway as twilight settled. The protective order lay on the hallway console, a stark barrier between him and Kamsi. He sank onto the sofa and drew out his laptop, heart heavy with remorse. His fingers hovered over the play button before he clicked. Adaora's confession filled the room, as vivid as if she stood beside him. He watched her every cruel grin, every mocking gesture. At the end, she smirked. He'll never believe her. He'll never forgive her. Then Adaora laughed, a sound like shattered glass. Chijioke's palms prickled with shame. He pressed rewind and watched again, tears blurring the screen. Every betrayal, every lie, unfolded before him. How had he been so blind? How had he found excuses for Adaora's behavior when the truth sat right in front of him? He leapt to his feet and bolted through the house, searching for his sister. In the study, Adaora was on a video chat, laughing with friends oblivious to his presence. Her face froze when she saw him in the doorway. "See Chijioke," she stammered. "What are you doing home so early?" He held up the laptop. "Explain this." Adaora's color drained as he hit play. She opened her mouth, then snapped it shut. "You can't prove it," she hissed. "I don't need to prove it," he said. "I saw it with my own eyes." Rage flickered in his eyes. "You lied to me, to Kamsi." Adaora's voice grew icy. "I did what had to be done. She was a threat to our family's reputation." Chijioke's face twisted. "Our family? You nearly destroyed my wife, Adaora." She shrugged. "She's the outsider. You should have seen the look on her face when the bank statement surfaced." He walked away, disgust burning in his chest. In his study, he found a notebook and ripped out a fresh page. With trembling handwriting, he wrote, "I was a coward. I let you lie to me. I let you hurt her. Forgive me." He pressed the note into a 100 naira bill and slipped it into his pocket. Heading for the door, he paused at the threshold and whispered into the empty night, "I have to find you, Kamsi. I have to make this right." Kamsi's refuge at her mother's small bungalow was calm, but tense. Mama Uju kept vigil, moving through the kitchen, tea, clean clothes, gentle words. But the arrival of a knock on the front gate shattered the fragile peace. Kamsi opened the door to find Adaora, umbrella dripping, lips curved in a faux apology. "Kamsi, please. We need to talk." Kamsi squared her shoulders. "You have nothing to say to me." Adaora's eyes flickered with annoyance. "I'm your sister-in-law. I won't be ignored." Kamsi stepped aside, blocking her path. "You did more than ignore me. You hurt me." Adaora shook out her umbrella and crossed her arms. "Your ego is as big as your heart. You think you're the only one who's suffered." Kamsi's jaw clenched. "You think? You caused my miscarriage." Adaora's smile vanished. "That was your body's choice. You should have been more careful." Anger flared through Kamsi's veins. "You planted lies, stole my ring, slandered me. You nearly destroyed my life." Adaora's voice dropped to venom. "I was protecting my brother and our family status. If you weren't strong enough to handle a little pressure, that's your weakness." Kamsi's hands curled into fists. "Weakness? You're the coward who hides behind schemes because you lack the strength to face me honestly." Adaora laughed, a harsh sound. "You think you're so righteous. You built your little empire in this man's arms. But when push came to shove, you threatened us, so I fought back." Kamsi stepped forward, eyes blazing. "I threatened no one. I only sought the truth." A tense silence stretched between them, broken only by the distant cry of a passing motorbike. Then Mama Uju emerged from the house, walking stick in hand. "Enough," she said, voice calm but firm. Adaora glared at her. "Stay out of this." Uju raised a hand. "You, both of you, are my children. But one of you betrayed that bond. Kamsi has suffered injustice. And you," she pointed at Adaora, "have no claim here until you show remorse." Adaora's eyes narrowed. "Remorse? From a liar?" Kamsi knelt beside her mother. "Mama Uju, I don't want revenge. I want peace." Her mother nodded. "Then let truth guide you. But first, Adaora, you must ask for forgiveness." Adaora's lips twitched, then she turned on her heel. Without a word, she strode away into the cloudy afternoon, her umbrella swallowed by the road's bend. Kamsi exhaled, knees weak, and pressed a hand to her mother's arm. "Thank you." Oju patted her back. You stood your ground. Now we wait for Chijioke's return and for the healing that truth brings. Chijioke awoke before dawn, haunted by the memory of Kamsi's silhouette disappearing down the street. Against his better judgment, he threw on a shirt and rushed out into the humid pre-dawn air, phone in hand. His first stop was the neighborhood thrift market where Kamsi used to shop for home goods. Stalls were closed, but a lone vendor recognized him. You're Kamsi's husband, right? She was here yesterday. Chijioke's heart pounded. Which way did she go? The vendor pointed toward the old highway. She took a blue car, an older model, headed toward River State. Chijioke thanked him and sprinted back to his car. He dialed Barrister Muna as he peeled out. I need to find her anywhere. Muna's voice was calm. I've been in touch with her mother. She's at her childhood home in BORRAH. Take the expressway before traffic builds. He floored the accelerator. The city blurred around him, neon signs folding into streaks of light. Every red light felt like an eternity. His phone pinged, another protective order notice. Adaora has been served. Relief flickered alongside guilt. At the toll booth, Chijioke caught his reflection in the rearview mirror. Eyes bloodshot, jaw clenched. He whispered to himself, I'm so sorry. Traffic snarled as he approached BORRAH. Impatient drivers honked as he weaved through lanes. At a fork in the road, he misjudged and scraped the curb, tires screeching. In that microsecond of panic, he wondered if he was too late. Finally, he spotted the modest bungalow. Mama Oju's home. Lights on in the front room. He jumped out and pounded on the gate. A groggy guard recognized him and buzzed him through. Inside, Mama Oju stood in the doorway, arms outstretched. Chijioke, thank God. Kamsi sat on the couch, wrapped in a patterned wrapper, eyes swollen from crying. She looked up, stunned by his sudden appearance. He sank to his knees before her, voice raw. Kamsi, I'm sorry. I should have trusted you. Tears coursed down her cheeks. He took her hands in his, trembling. Will you ever forgive me? For a moment, she said nothing. Then she closed her eyes and leaned forward, resting her forehead against his. I need time, she whispered, but I see you now. Chijioke nodded, tears falling freely. I'll wait as long as it takes. Outside, the sun peeked over the horizon, gilding the mango trees with gold. In that fragile light, Kamsi and Chijioke sat together, two hearts battered by betrayal, but bound by hope. The path to healing lay ahead, winding and uncertain. But in that moment, they had found each other again, and the promise of a new beginning. The morning sun found Kamsi standing at the polished mahogany door of her former home, a crisp white envelope clutched in her hand. She'd rehearsed this moment 1,000 times, yet her heart still fluttered as she pressed the doorbell. The chime echoed down the hallway. Chijioke answered, eyes rimmed red, hair tousled from restless nights. He stared at her in disbelief. Kamsi, what are you doing here? She held out the envelope. These are your copies. Inside lay the divorce petition, meticulously drafted by Barrister Muna. Grounds of infidelity by association, false allegations, emotional cruelty. Chijioke's throat bobbed as he reached out, fingers grazing the paper. Kamsi, please, let's talk, he pleaded, voice breaking. But Kamsi's resolve was iron. Talk, she echoed softly. You refused to hear me when it mattered. You slapped me. You shut me out. I've waited long enough. He swallowed. I'm sorry. I made mistakes. She met his gaze without flinching. I need more than apologies. I need a fresh start. She turned to leave, but paused at the threshold. I hope you find peace, Chijioke. He called after her, desperate. Come back. But the door shut before she could hear. In the stillness, Kamsi felt sorrow and relief entwine. The papers were more than legal documents. They were her declaration of freedom. As she walked away, dawn shimmered around her, promising new beginnings. The courthouse steps teemed with reporters' cameras and live-stream crews. Headlines flashed on giant smartphones. Wife versus sister. The trial of the year. Kamsi emerged in a tailored navy suit, calm and radiant, her posture regal. Beside her stood Barrister Muna, husband's remorse kept at bay by the steel of the law. Inside the packed courtroom, Chijioke sat beside Adaora, whose usual confidence had crumbled into sallow nerves. The judge, an imposing figure in robes, called the session to order. At the prosecutor's table, Muna rose to present Kamsi's key evidence, the hidden recording of Adaora's confession, authenticated bank statements, the threat note, and testimony from Ifeoma, who described Adaora's pattern of manipulation. Gasps rippled through the gallery as Adaora's own voice filled the room, admitting her schemes. Adaora's defense lawyer spluttered objections, but the judge overruled each, citing the recording's clarity and Adaora's explicit admissions. Chijioke covered his face with his hands, shame flooding his features. When Muna rested her case, the judge turned to Adaora. Her voice quavered as she made her defense, but every word felt hollow under the weight of her taped confession. Finally, the judge delivered a ruling. Adaora was fined for defamation, ordered to pay reparations, and restrained from any contact with Kamsi. The courtroom erupted, cameras flashed, reporters shouted questions. Outside, Kamsi emerged into sunlight, flanked by supporters. She lifted her gaze, breathing in freedom. Though the legal battle was won, the court of public opinion was just awakening, and she intended to let her truth shine brighter than any scandal. By lunchtime, viral clips of the courtroom confrontation had garnered millions of views. Social media timelines overflowed with split-screen videos, Adaora's smug confession beside her stunned expression in court. Hashtags like #JusticeForKamsi and #SisterBetrayal trended nationwide. In elegant offices, sponsors who once courted Adaora withdrew endorsements. A luxury brand removed her face from its ad campaign. A prominent NGO revoked her board position. Former friends untagged her in photos, public statements praising Kamsi's courage flooding the airwaves. Adaora, isolated and exposed, paced her apartment in a penthouse she could no longer enjoy. Each ping of her phone delivered another blow. Your services are no longer required. We regret our association. Effective immediately, the walls felt like a cage. Meanwhile, Kamsi's story inspired countless others. Talk shows invited her to speak on resilience. Bloggers hailed her as a symbol of women's empowerment. Messages poured in, survivors sharing stories of slander and betrayal, finding solidarity in her strength. That evening, as Kamsi scrolled through supportive comments, she paused at a message from Chijioke. I am so sorry. Every day, I'll work to deserve your forgiveness. She paused, no immediate reply, reflecting on how far she'd come, from a woman silenced by lies to a beacon of truth in the public eye. 6 months later, Kamsi stood before a ribbon stretched across the entrance of the Nwokedi Women's Empowerment Center, named in honor of her mother's strength. The building, once an abandoned community hall, now gleamed with fresh paint and windows filled with hope. Barrister Muna stood at her side, Mama Oju beside her in vibrant Ankara fabric, and Chijioke, tentative but proud, waited among the guests. Young women in bright head wraps held the ribbon's ends, their faces alight with expectation. Kamsi raised the golden scissors and, before the crowd, spoke into the microphone. This center is built for every woman who has been silenced, slandered, or pushed to the shadows. Here you will find skills training, legal aid, and a sisterhood to remind you, you are never alone. As she cut the ribbon, applause thundered. Journalists snapped photos. Local dignitaries offered congratulatory handshakes. Chijioke approached, slipping a small bouquet of white lilies into her hands. I'm proud of you, he whispered. She smiled, genuine warmth in her eyes. Thank you for believing. His nod was all the validation she needed. Over the coming weeks, the center buzzed with activity. Entrepreneurship workshops, support groups, legal clinics. Kamsi often found herself at the helm, guiding survivors of defamation and domestic strife toward renewal. The ashes of her past had fueled a blaze of empowerment for countless others. On the center's grand opening anniversary, Kamsi prepared for a celebratory gala. The hall shimmered with fairy lights, and guests mingled over herbal cocktails. A slideshow highlighted women whose lives had been transformed. Behind the scenes, Kamsi paused, gazing at a photograph of her wedding day, rainbow arching overhead. Then she heard footsteps and turned to see Chijioke standing in the doorway, remorse deepening the lines on his face. In his hand, he held a single white rose. "Kamsi," he said softly, "I tried to show you before, but I was too late. I understand if you never forgive me." She studied him, the man she once loved, who had hurt her so deeply. Her heart fluttered at old memories, but her gaze was steady. "You came," she replied. He offered the rose. "I just wanted you to know that I've learned from my mistakes." Kamsi held the flower between her fingers, inhaling its fragrance. Then she placed it gently on a nearby table, among lilies and orchids. It was a symbol of what was, and what could never be again. "I appreciate your words," she said, voice calm, "but my life is here now." With a gentle nod, she turned back to her guests. Chijioke watched her blend into the crowd, radiant, unbowed. As the band struck up a hopeful tune, he realized that some goodbyes, when made in strength, can be the greatest gift of all. And for Kamsi, walking through the doors of her center that night, every step echoed her journey, from betrayal's darkness into the unbreakable light of her own becoming. The end.